Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the channel and thank you so much for taking your own time out to click on this video right here, and I really appreciate it. My name's Mike and I'm here today to talk about the top 10 movies of 2022. I have got two honourable mentions, but just before I do any of that, I want to invite you to leave a comment down below to let me know your top 10 favourite movies of the year, or even just one favourite movie that you've had this year. Before we dive into it, I just want to make a disclaimer that these are just my own personal opinions. There may be some movies here that's not on my list that's maybe on yours, and you think, well, you know, like, why is that? And it might just purely be the case that I've not seen that movie. Like, I know, like, After Sun was a movie I wanted to check out this year, but I just generally haven't had the chance to do so. And that could have been a top 10 list. It could have been top 10 worst. Who knows? So, yeah, just a little disclaimer. So, two honourable mentions. Let's just get straight to it. The first honourable mention is Where the Crawdads Sing. The second honourable mention is The Menu. So, without further ado, let's get to the list. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And you think, Mike, well, like, why is this number 10 on the list? Surely it should be like number 1, number 2, or whatever. I enjoyed this movie. It was a very pleasantly surprise for me, and the experience that I had with this. It was an A24 movie, and everyone knows me. I have a hit and miss relationship with that movie production company. So when this movie came out, I didn't expect anything whatsoever. I thought, this is just going to be another kind of artsy-fartsy kind of movie. Maybe I don't understand the messaging, and I thought, yeah, I'm just not going to like it. And oh boy, I like this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic. Micheal Yeoh is great. And all round, his performances are good. It's definitely a great way of how they did a multiverse movie. And it's probably one of the best, if not the best, kind of multiverse kind of movies that they've done in very recent years. Number 9 is an Indian Telugu movie that I checked out on Netflix, which is around 3 hours long and near enough that, and that is RRR, or Triple R, how I like to call it. So yeah, this was a very pleasant surprise. I'd never watched an Indian Telugu movie ever in my life, which I really wish I had, but this was my first ever experience, and this is a way to do a sometimes over the top kind of action movie, but also a movie that really gives you a visual spectacle, and it really tells a nice heartwarming story, even if there is some deceit and betrayal in the mix. And this was just a very pleasant surprise, kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to world cinema, that they already are open to it, and this was just like a big shock for me. I went into this thinking, like, wow, this is getting like rave reviews, and usually if a movie gets like really rave reviews, I'm like, it's probably just not worth it. It's probably just getting like some kind of hype train, or, you know, trying to go for a best picture or something along those lines. But this was just absolutely kind of breathtaking in some of the scenes, and a very big and pleasant surprise of 2022. And number 8 clocks in a movie that I only checked out recently, and I know it's not going to work for everyone, and some people may say that this movie is kind of come too soon, maybe should have given it a couple of more years. And yeah, I probably agreed to an extent, because it is about the Me Too movement, it's about the Harvey Weinstein scandal, which I didn't really know a lot about that, so I think that's why I had a lot more enjoyment in this movie than, say, a lot of other people. That is a movie called She Said. Yeah, I really love this movie. Now, I know it's got like a lot of comparisons to Spotlight, and I can guess that's kind of like a fair comparison as such, because it kind of just on journalism, but this is definitely a completely different story to that one, and I just really enjoyed She Said. I was gripped from the first moment of this movie right up until the end. I didn't kind of want it to end. I would have happily watched another 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever of this movie, and I just honestly personally enjoyed it. I found it to be a really interesting subject matter. I think that they tackled it pretty well, and overall I just really enjoyed the movie. So She Said definitely belongs on this list. So at number 7 is definitely one of the best horror movies for myself personally of this year. Now, I have got a couple of other horrors I am going to mention later on down in the list, but this one is the one that really stood out to me, and that is Ethan Hawke in The Black Phone. So I saw the trailer for this. Immediately I was on board. I was like, wow, okay, I'm interested in what they're going to do with this movie. The performances all round are absolutely solid. The kid and child acting is fantastic. fantastic, and Ethan Hawke is great as the grabber. He isn't in the movie as much as maybe myself and a lot of other people have kind of said in reviews and they would have liked to have seen, but for what he is in the movie, it really gives a great performance and a really creepy and eerie performance. Kind of like a very simple premise of a horror movie. Yeah, it does have some like supernatural elements kind of mixed in there. But such a simple premise, but I think it's just executed so well. And it's a movie that's really stuck with me since I checked it out. A movie that has just come out as I'm recording this review. And that is James Cameron's sequel to the original Avatar, The Way of Water. So I got to experience this movie with my dad, if you haven't already seen my review, which was my dad's first cinema experience in about 12 years, which is absolutely insane. His favorite movie is pretty much Avatar, or at least in this like probably top 3. So I knew immediately I had to take him to see this movie, and I think the sequel was absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to check it out again in an IMAX 3D setting, which I only got to experience in a regular screening. But I generally think that this movie was great. I'm really interested to see where they're going to go with the sequels. Going back to the world of Pandora was just utterly fascinating. I really dug Sam Worthington's character of Jake Sully, Saul Saldana in here as well. I really enjoyed them. They got a bit more screen time. They got a bit more like character development, which I wanted to see from the first movie. And all around, just this return to Pandora, I was just honestly fantastic. I loved it. I thought it was just a really great visual spectacle. Alright, so we've made it down to our top 5 in our list. And this movie right here, I personally think went under the radar. It was on Disney Plus. I know in America it was on Hulu. It's directed by a directorial debut of Mimi Cave. It stars Daisy Edgar Jones and Sebastian Stan. And that is a movie called Fresh. So this movie, I really enjoyed this one. So my partner Emma had watched it. She's like, Mike, you've got to check out this movie Fresh. And I knew it was a horror movie. I'd seen the poster kind of cover of just like a hand being like cut up in like kind of like a butcher's slab of meat, like the advertisement. And I was like, I don't really know if this was for me. And I was like, I was one of those where you're like, oh, I may check it out, and you kind of don't ever check it out. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, look, I threw it in one night. I was like, look, I'm just going to watch this movie. My partner Emma watched it with me again, because she's like, if you watch it, Mike, I'm happy to watch it with you again. And this was a very massive surprise. I really enjoyed this movie with great performances by Daisy Edgar Jones and Sebastian Stan, who a lot of people know, including myself, as the Winter Soldier in the MCU. But in this movie, I don't want to tell you too much, because if you've not seen it, I don't want to give you spoilers or tell you kind of like what it's about or anything like that. All I'll say is that this kind of goes an unexpected way without spoilers. That's all I'll kind of say. But it's a great story. It kept me engrossed throughout the entire runtime. I was intrigued as to, okay, well, this is Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Like, which direction are they actually going to go in here? I was always curious as to where the movie was going to go and how it was going to end. It was funny. It had some like horror comedy. It had some good kind of like practical effects as well in here. It also had a cool story to it as well. And I think it was a very impressive directorial debut. Directed by Anthony Fabian, starring Leslie Manville and Isabelle Huppert, and that is Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Now, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that this is even going to make my list, and going into this movie, I had no expectations at all, guys. I'd seen the trailer like once. I was like, this just looks like a goofy movie, it's like going to be like some kind of cheesy as hell kind of movie, and I was like, I don't have high hopes for this like whatsoever. I went into that movie, and I will say, after I walked out of the cinema from checking it out, I had one of the biggest smiles on my face I've ever experienced after watching the movie. Leslie Manville is absolutely and utterly fantastic in the role, and this is just a very sweet, a very humbling movie, a movie that's got a fantastic message, or messages, should I say, and one that you may not really expect to be like maybe a great movie or you have no expectations for, but is one of those like very pleasant kind of like pulling the rug from under your feet kind of movies, and that is the exact experience that I had with this one. A very sweet and emotional movie. I can't wait to own it on physical media and add it to the collection and check it out again. It has just recently released in the UK as I'm recording this, but only on DVD, and I'd rather have it on like a Blu-ray or 4K. That's pretty much like all my collection. But this is just a very sweet movie, and a one that even when I think about it, I kind of get like chills and just like that memory of that smile on my face after checking out this movie. And I really can't wait to check out Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Once again, definitely one of the kind of better movies of this year. That is one of the biggest surprises of the year for myself. Okay, at number 3 is a movie that was dubbed as 2022's Malignant. And immediately when I heard that tagline, I was like, hell no. Nope, I'm not checking out this movie. So a shout out to Cinematic Tendency if you're watching this, by the way, because I know he loves Malignant. But as soon as I heard that tagline, I was not a fan of 2021's Malignant at all. Maybe the first 15 minutes of that movie, yes. After that, no. Never revisited it ever again. Don't have any desire to, I'm being completely honest with you. But when it was dubbed as this, Barbarian is number 3. And when this movie had that kind of dubbing, I was like, no. But anyway, in September of this year, I actually got to visit America in Florida, and I actually got to meet one of my best friends I've made from YouTube, Anthony E. Perez, in person, and we were going to check out a movie. And I think it was like Barbarian or Minions on at the time, and you guys know I hate those yellow little idiots. But yeah, it was either Minions or Barbarian, so I was like, look, let's go see Barbarian. And oh boy, this was a great surprise when I checked out this movie. I absolutely dug this movie. I've now seen it 2 or 3 times. I think it's twice actually. I've seen this movie. Justin Long's in here. It's just great performances all around, and a premise that is very kind of unique in terms of like an Airbnb situation. I don't want to say too much again for anyone who's not seen this movie as of yet. But Barbarian was a great time at the movie theater. It was a great time even on rewatch. I think I dug it even more on a rewatch than I already did. And this was just a very pleasantly big surprise horror movie of the year for me. Now, I absolutely love the Fresh and the Black Phone that I spoke about previously, but this one right here really kind of, again, pulled the rug from under my feet, and I left the movie theater thinking, wow, what a great movie. But I also was thinking, like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm like, what is this kind of mind trip that I've just been on? And this is a sequel to a movie that had come out over 20, nearly 30 years ago, even more than 30 years ago probably at this point. So I watched the original movie 1 or 2 days before this one came out. I was not a fan of the original movie at all. The original movie being Top Gun. I wasn't a fan. I just thought this is definitely a product of the 80s, and I didn't think it had aged too well or anything like that. So going into Top Gun Maverick, I had no expectations with this movie at all. I just thought, nah. I was like, it's probably going to be one of those sequels they've done like 20, 30 years down the line, and it never lives up to the expectation. But oh boy, was I wrong with this movie. This was an absolute entertainment trip from beginning up until the very end. This was fantastic. The practical stunt work in this movie is utterly sensational. Tom Cruise, Miles Teller, all the other cast and crew here do a phenomenal job, and I love the fact that Tom Cruise was insistent that this is to have no CG in the movie. It has to be practical. All the cast and crew went on like extensive 2-3 month kind of pilot training courses to prepare for this role, to pull off the stunts in the movie. And it's one of those kind of magical movies that comes along, and in years and years and years to come, it's just going to age with time, and it's going to just age very well. And it's going to be like, wow, those guys really did that. Like kind of like a brain explosion kind of moment movie. And that's exactly what Top Gun Maverick was, with great performances. Tom Cruise is fantastic in the role as Maverick, and this was honestly just a roller coaster of a ride. There was times where I was happy and smiling. I was like just in awe and amazed and bewildered by what I was seeing on screen. And there's times where I was just emotional and was worried for our characters and the stakes that was at hand. And this movie had a good plot to go on and it executed perfectly. And I really can't wait to check out this movie again. You probably can guess immediately what this movie is, but if you're brand new, probably wondering, okay, well, Mike, what is number one on your list? So that movie for me came out, I think, in March of this year, after being postponed and delayed due to COVID, directed by Matt Reeves, and that is The Batman. So this movie, guys, I have an absolute massive obsession and fascination with Batman. Heck, I've even got a Batman tattoo right here with Heath Ledger's Joker on the underarm there. And I absolutely love Batman. So when they first announced Robert Pattinson as Batman, I was like, oh, I'm not sure on that decision. Now, I think myself and other people really need to stop kind of doing this, because it just goes to show when these movies come out, like Heath Ledger got a lot of flack at the time for being cast as a Joker, and everyone kind of shut them out as soon as they saw the movie. And this was just a fantastic time at the cinema. I got to experience this in IMAX for the first time ever seeing an IMAX movie, and I was blown away. My mind was just completely in awe and felt like I'd had like 20 energy drinks after this movie. It was just going all over the place, and it's just like, wow, I'm still trying to process this scene. It was crazy. And I've seen this movie 3 times in the space of like a week, in a couple of days even, in fact. And this movie is just fantastic, guys. I absolutely loved it. I can't believe for another year in a row, a superhero-based movie has took the top spot of number 1. So I hope that you've enjoyed this top 10 list. If you agree with any of the picks that I have, if they're in your list or if they're on the same positions in your list as they were mine, I'll leave any and all comments down below so we can continue discussion down there about it and we can talk about it a little bit more. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And also subscribe to the channel by pressing the red button down below if you haven't already. Also, if you're unaware, I do have a Patreon. Yeah, over on my Patreon, I have a couple of tiers you can select from, which starts from £2 per month. And these tiers do include like early videos, my release schedules, say what goes onto the channel. You can actually pick out movies for me to review. There's so much stuff to find out about my Patreon. The link is down below in the description box if you want to check out more. And I want to give a big special thank you to all my awesome Patreons who help support the channel. Until the next time that I see you, I'll be seeing you later.